was a release in that area, this is now the bookend of that. We're kind of wrapping that energy up, you know, with this particular solar eclipse. And then we're going to be off moving on to the next thing. Everybody, and welcome to the Wild Wahine. This is Kaylani, and this is your Astro Forecast for this week, November 29th through December the 5th. We're going to be hyper-focusing on this new moon that's happening. It's a solar eclipse in the sign of Sagittarius, but we do have a couple of other aspects that will be applying to that will kind of color this new moon. So we will talk about those too, because we have some other things that are happening towards the end of the week that are going to take much more time, and I want to focus on that and like kind of sort of pull out some of these transits that are going to be important. I will be doing like a whole deep dive on Venus in Capricorn and Venus retrograde and Venus conjunct Pluto and all of that, so make sure you look out for that separate video along with all of the weekly astro forecasts. So let's dig in right now and start off with the beginning of the week. We have the Sun and Mercury in Sagittarius sextiling Saturn in Aquarius. So we're going to be feeling that beginning of the week, the 29th, the 30th, depending upon where you are in the world, and all the way until about the 4th or 5th of December. So this is a really good time for like getting things done and for organizing and for just putting all of your ducks in a row for the things that you want to do. Now, we do know that Mercury is in a little bit of a weakened state when it's in Sagittarius's sign. It doesn't necessarily do well there. So all of the detail-oriented things you could probably save up a little bit until towards the end of the month, or especially when, you know, we transition into Capricorn. I think Mercury will be stronger about actually like getting the details done. But all of the big ideas and the thoughts that you had, all of the kind of visionary things that you have, putting all that together, gathering your team together, doing your research on that, all of that should be flowing really well this week. Really good for like wrangling up people too, having conversations. You know, we just are coming out of this cazimi with the Sun and Mercury, which we talked about in last week's video, which I'll tag up here and somewhere below. With that, we probably got some information, a place where things were cloudy and we didn't know exactly what was happening and what we were doing. Maybe someone came with some information and now we have information and now we're thinking about how to apply that information. And this is like a really good time to use that. Whenever we have Sun, Saturn kind of things going on, that's a lot of times could be information regarding the father. That can be information from an older person, specifically like maybe an older gentleman or somebody that just is old and wise in nature and has that kind of sort of masculine feel, somebody that you trust, somebody that kind of really knows what they're doing, that's giving you some information about something that's important, that helps clarify things for you. So that's kind of how that cazimi is like rolling into sextiling Saturn, really working together to get those things done and operating at kind of like a higher level. So we're setting the structure for things, we're setting the foundation for things, we're gathering people together with Mercury there. It's going to be a lot of conversations, probably a lot of conversations about building and putting things together and like organizing and researching and all of that stuff. So it's just really, really good for those types of things. So if you've been kind of complacent or feeling a little bit low energy mentally wise, we should be feeling a lot more on top of things. So for a lot of people, that'll feel really good. Now we do have Venus, which is in Capricorn. We will touch on that a bit, sextiling Neptune, and that's going to be happening, and we're feeling that on the 29th to December the 5th. So with Venus in Capricorn sextiling Neptune, and she's about to actually, you know, make this conjunction to Pluto, which is going to change things all around, and then go retrograde and then hit that conjunction back again. Like I said, we'll talk about that in another video and go really deep into that. But before that happens, before we have Venus essentially like unmasking herself and then reinventing like the structure and the foundations of all of your major relationships, which is what this is going to feel like, there is this moment of bliss. There is this moment of like connection. You could feel this moment of pleasantness before things get a little bit rocky and go maybe upside down and you get kind of shaken out a bit, and then you get like washed and ironed out, and then you're back, you know, ready to go in it again. So there is this moment, it's kind of like the quiet before the storm, or it can sometimes feel like the eye, you know, in the middle of the storm, where, you know, there's connections happening, there's relationships that are kind of open-hearted, there's a certain level of giving that you have with this particular sextile. You can feel really close to people, close to your workers, close to people that you're in relationship with. This definitely, because it's Venus, it's relationships. It's how we're relating to other people. And if it's sextiling Neptune, there can be like a lot of romantic aspirations to that, or a lot of pie in the sky, or I'm really looking at it, you know, glass half full kind of energy, which later on, you know, as Venus kind of makes her rounds, we find out that things are not exactly as they seem. So I would say before you you put all your eggs in one basket. You just want to kind of like, you know, go with the feelings and go with the flow, but don't like put all your cards on the table, because there's still some things that are underneath there that you might not see. Now, in the end, when all of this is over, I think there's going to be a lot of things that are revealed. There's going to be a lot of growth. There's going to be some tears. There's going to be a lot of different changes. However, it will be for the better. So we're, you know, kind of prepping in that, and that's kind of the energy that's happening. Now, we have Mars, which is in Scorpio right now, and it's also going to be forming this trine to Neptune that we're feeling now, and we're going to be feeling that kind of until about the 7th, and then we'll have Mars transition into the sign of Sagittarius, which I'm also very excited about, just because it's going to be applying to that Saturn and also Jupiter, and it'll just be like Mars in this place of doing like really being active and helping us like get some things done in places where we might have been a bit stagnant, or maybe we've just been a little hesitant, or just it's been kind of like, you know, with Mars in Scorpio, it had just been hitting that, you know, opposition to Uranus. So like anything you built might have felt like it was falling apart, or like it was just like hitting a brick wall. And I just feel like this is going to be like really concrete moments moving forward. So that should feel good. But before that happens, it is forming this trine to Neptune. So this could be like a place where you're able to like kind of be a little bit more open, more like, how can I be of service? You may feel a little bit less energy, like a lower energy at this time. Like, you know, the workout routine, you maybe didn't feel like it, or you feel like you want to like maybe do a different kind of workout that's a little bit more like spiritual in nature, like go to a yoga class as opposed to like hit the gym, you know, do some breathing, do some meditation. It's kind of really good time for that. It's a good time for imagination. So again, like, you know, with what's happening with this particular type of energy, you're going to be able to get things done, but it's much more in like a mental way of kind of like writing things down and putting things to paper. But the actual getting your body up into it is coming. It's just not coming right now. You're still kind of the body, and, you know, and also our relationships are kind of like having this relationship to Neptune that's not really allowing us to fully engage, but we're almost there. So just organize things as much as you can. Take some time. It's really about, I don't know if you guys took a look at the reading that I did for this week, but it really is about combining the spiritual aspect and like the bodily aspect of what we're doing for this week. Like that's kind of sort of the idea and the formulation of this week, and how you can work with that energy. So you want to make sure that you're working and you're activating on the things that you can, at least mentally, in your paperwork and all that kind of stuff. But give yourself some downtime, give yourself time to relax and, you know, like hang out with some friends, or, you know, spend some time doing like some things that make you feel good, organizing your house, organizing your space around you so that it feels good, so that it's relaxing. Really having that balance between the two, I think, is going to be really helpful, you know, going into this new moon. So next up we have the new moon, which is a solar eclipse in Sagittarius, and that's going to be happening depending upon where you are in the world. Here in Hawaii on the 3rd, and if you're on the mainland, that'll be on the 4th. So a solar eclipse is a time where the moon is in between the sun and the earth, and so we have the earth is casting a shadow over the sun. So this particular eclipse, unless you live or are near Antarctica, or you're in the southern part of Africa, or you're in Oz, or you're in New Zealand, or any place like that in the southern hemisphere, you will be able to see it. Now, you won't be able to see the full solar eclipse unless you're literally on Antarctica, but if you're in any of those other places I named, you might be able to see a partial solar eclipse. So for the rest of us that live, you know, closer to the equator, or in the north, or even the northern part of the southern hemisphere, we will not be able to see it, but the energy is there. So typically that means that like wherever it's more visible, that's where it tends to affect you a little bit more, and if you're not able to see it, there might be less of an effect. But it is a bookend to our lunar eclipse that happened in May, and that was May 25th or 26th, depending upon, again, where you were in the world. It's kind of bookending that. So who is playing in this solar eclipse? Well, we have the sun, we have the moon, we also have Mercury in Sag. It's conjunct the south node. So the south node, also known as K2, is kind of about things that are decreasing, things that are kind of letting go, things that are getting smaller, they're diminishing in a way. So with new moons, typically that is like a time where we're starting something new and we're doing this new thing and we're launching and all of that kind of stuff. But again, as I said in last week's video, when we talked about the lunar eclipse, you know, eclipse season is a time where we're taking a hold. It's definitely like a more empowered full moon. If it's a lunar eclipse, it's a more empowered new moon, but we're not really doing a lot of magic, and we're not really starting a lot of stuff at that time, because again, you know, the light is not full. You know, there is an eclipse in light. We're not actually seeing it here on this for most of us, you know, but it is actually something that's happening. So we're kind of holding off on our magic. We're kind of holding off on, you know, really setting intentions with this eclipse unless you know how to work with eclipse energy and there's something very specific you want to get out of it, which is something different, which if you guys are interested in, let me know in the comments below and we can talk about that. But for most people, what they want to do, like set out their tarot cards, set out their crystals and all of that kind of stuff, or do whatever kind of like love magic, not a good time for that. You just want to hold on that. However, with that being said, because this is a bookend to essentially all of these Sagittarius Gemini eclipses, and we're kind of pow with that, and we're moving into Scorpio Taurus axis, which would be our next eclipse, which we kind of got a peekaboo of that last full moon. This is going to be changing. This is going to be a little different. Let's talk about the beginning of this cycle. So when the nodes first switched into Sagittarius Gemini, that was 2000. That was, I think, May, June 2020. So that was when this cycle first started. So I want you, if you journal, which is why journaling is so excellent, because whenever we talk about these things, you can flip back in your journal and say, ooh, what was I going through at that time? And then you can see how things parallel. And this is why I always encourage everybody who listens to me or who works with me to keep a journal, so that way you know and you can reference back to things. And then you kind of have a better idea of like how some of this energy is going to work with you, because you can just literally look back in your journal and see. So whatever was going on around that time, and we all kind of collectively know it was happening because Rona we were in the throes of it, so to speak. And so that was kind of the start of this eclipse cycle. Then we had this lunar eclipse that happened this May. That was, you know, a very big deal. It was also something that, at least where I was in the world, it was incredibly visible. You know, I saw it. I was able to watch the entire thing on the beach, which is beautiful. So that was something that was effective. And I want to say that was a thing that probably diminished something. That was a thing that probably let something go. So when we have these lunar eclipses, they last, but they tend to last for months, where solar eclipse lasts a longer time. So whatever was diminishing, whatever started, you know, there was a release in that area. This is now the bookend of that. We're kind of wrapping that energy up, you know, with this particular solar eclipse. And then we're going to be off moving on to the next thing, because that's kind of sort of what we do with these cycles, where we're going through things and we have similar cycles, which just gives us another opportunity to work on things that are, you know, sometimes really hard to do in one swoop. So we are letting something go this particular time, where something was kind of released or something was loosened. Think of it like a loosening of a braid. You know, if you had a long braid and you kind of loosened it up, and then now we're kind of like taking it out and we're just like kind of sort of shaking our hair out, and now we're kind of in this new thing. So there is a newness to it because it's a full release of the cycle that we had before, and that's going to feel good, I think, for most of us, especially with, you know, with it happening here in Sagittarius, and, you know, we having this like sextile to Saturn, and then eventually we're going to be sextiling Jupiter. This is a lot more positive energy that's coming in, even though we do have a bump, you know, coming in December. In the mid to end of December is going to be a little rough. Once we get over the hump of that, and then Jupiter is back like in Pisces, which is where it, you know, picks up dignity because it's at home, things are going to start to feel better. And especially as we go into 2022, the astrology is already looking better for that. So just, if we can hold on, it can be like Hodor. We just hold the door, you know, a little while longer. We're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we're going to be really excited and glad that we held on a little bit longer. So the sun, moon, and Mercury are passing through the sextile to Saturn. And then they're sextiling Jupiter a little bit later on in the month, and then it's going to be squaring Neptune. So we're going to be in this place of like building excitement, activity, getting the new thing done. Let's jump on it. Let's do it. You know, let's go for it and let's try. But then we're also going to have this square to Neptune, which kind of makes like this might be a little bit uncharted land. I'm trying to figure out how I'm negotiating this, you know, it's a little bit confusing. We don't have all of the answers. We don't have everything, but I feel really good about it. Like, I know that it's going to be okay. It's going to have that kind of vibe to it. Now, like I said, you know, Venus is throwing us a little bit of a curveball, the benefic planet, because it will be retrograde. And we do have that Saturn-Uranus square that's happening right around Christmas holiday. So that is also going to be another kind of like, whoa, you know, of energy that's happening, because that will be going exact. And that won't be happening again until next fall. But, you know, we will have that kind of energy happening. But at least for these next 2 weeks, things will be a little bit more lighter, and we'll be able to get a few more things done before we have to kind of sort of brace for impact of what's happening with the retrograde with Venus and also Saturn-Uranus square. So, you know, this is like a good 2 weeks or so to kind of sort of play and get some things done before, you know, the energy shifts, and then it'll shift back again. So just know that that's coming. Just know that you're going to feel uplifted. You're going to feel more energized. You'll have more opportunity opportunities come. I mean, like whenever Jupiter is involved, we have more opportunities. We're going to be more likely to be organized, to have things together. I really like to think about this kind of energy as like Jupiter is the director and Saturn is the producer. So if you know anything, or like Saturn's the line producer. So like Jupiter as the director has these big ideas of like how the play or how the film is going to go. And I want to have this, and I want to have CGI. I want to have monsters coming in here. And then I want, the aliens coming down, and this, and, Saturn as the producer is like, well, how much is that going to cost? Do you know what our budget looks like? We have 3 days on this location and we can't have any more. The director with all these wonderful ideas, the producer wants that to happen, but the producer also knows we got to stay in budget. So it's kind of saying like, look, we got to cut that down. Like, okay, no aliens, but yes, we can have monsters. And then the director's like, okay, great. So now what we're going to do is with this. And so they're kind of back and forth. So, the producer limits things. It says, well, this is our budget. This is the time that we have. This is what we have to do. Like, you're going to have to make it work within that. And Jupiter's like, okay, well, if that's what we have to work with, well, then let's do it. Let's make it happen. Let's see how we can do this. And that's kind of the energy that we'll have. It's not like you'll have access to all the gifts of the world, but you will have some playroom within that to be able to get some things done and to kind of sort of start on things as we book in that Gemini Saturn kind of nodal situation that we had, and then we're moving on. Neptune again can cause some confusion. It can cause us to be very dreamy. It can be a lot of like beautiful inspiration that happens, but it also can be confusion. It also can be like not exactly knowing who to trust or who's telling the truth or what's really going on, and feeling like you're really confused and you're not sure how to take action, which might result in immobility, because that happens a lot of times when we're confused. So that's also going to be in the mix too. So it's not like we're going to have like all the clarity in the world, but we're going to feel good as we're kind of navigating through things in the darkness a little bit. That might be how it kind of feels a bit. Now, when Mars moves in the Sag, like I said, this is going to be great because it's picking up just a lot more energy, and it'll be a lot more direct energy, and you'll have more energy to do things. So one thing I'm feeling really good about this new moon solar eclipse is the fact that like it's not touching Uranus. And I think that feels really good, because the instability and the changeability and the like, oh my gosh, here's this, and then there's this, and then that might not happen, and then Mars kind of activating that, and it just being on that fixed axis where things have been rough, which we felt a couple weeks ago there in Scorpio. We're not having that energy. So it'll feel a lot more stable, especially with Saturn there kind of sort of holding it down for everybody. We're not going to have that necessarily like, let's fight against it, at least not yet, until Saturn and Uranus become exact, and we're kind of like, they're approaching that right now. So it's not like we're completely over it, but at least we'll have like a little bit of time where we'll have a little bit of stability before we kind of have that kind of abrupt shift or surprise or change suddenly that we have to accommodate, and then once we accommodate that, it'll shift again, and then we'll be able to move forward. So I just want to keep saying that, because a lot of times people will think, because we know like with Rona, it's like there's another variant and there's another this, and oh my gosh, and what's happening. And we just have to understand that is the cycle. This Saturn Uranus cycle has mimicked Rona the whole time. And so if that's the case, then, yeah, we're going to have another little bump, but then we're going to get over that, and then we'll move over, and then we're going to be okay. So I just want everybody to know that and feel like inspired by this, as opposed to feeling like bummed out and like you don't know what to do and you're feeling really sad. So with that being said, let's break down a little bit about where this eclipse is happening for you. And like I said, I have horoscopes coming out probably on Tuesday or Wednesday that will be breaking down for all the rising signs, like where this new moon is going to be affecting you. But I just wanted to kind of go over it just here on the video. So if you're an Aries rising, this is going to be happening in your 9th house. So a lot of the focus and the newness, the bookending kind of, and the newness might be happening somewhere in the 9th house, which has to do with travel, has to do with teachers, higher education, philosophy, and or spirituality. If you're a Taurus rising, this can be happening in your 8th house. So this a lot of times has to do with gains from others, like shared financial resources that you might have with a partner, that you might have with a friend, a business or so, your financial responsibilities, your debt, joint finances, and all of those things. This is where the focus of that energy is going to be happening. If you're a Gemini rising, this is happening in your 7th house of love and relationships and intimacy and all of those types of things. So look to see where that bookend might be coming, and then the new thing coming out of that. If you're a Cancer rising, this is happening in your 6th house. So for Cancer risings, health, hard work, has to also do with like projects, things that you're working hard for. Be careful of accidents and injuries that can happen because it is 6th house stuff, which a lot of times has to do with like health and wellness and fitness and all of those types of things. So that's the area that it can be happening. For Leo risings, this is your 5th house, your house of creativity, your house of fun, your house of pleasure, of joy, of sensuality, of children, all of the things that you enjoy in life that are just fun for the sake of them being fun. This can be where this energy is going to be showing up for you. For Virgo risings, this is happening in your 4th house, your house of family, your private life, things that have to do with lineage, things that have to do with your home. So again, like what's happening in May, you know, we're kind of like, you know, snapping back to that and looking at how that affected us and what's the book in there, and then what's the new thing that's going to be happening from there. For Libra risings, this is your 3rd house. So this is about mental stimulation. It can be about communication. It could be about education, things that you're learning, things that you want to accumulate in your life, in terms of knowledge, education, your neighbor, your neighborhood tech, and also just your everyday things that you're doing. This is actually one of the things that's hitting you there. For Scorpio risings, this is happening in your 2nd house, your house of finance, of commerce, how much your savings, your income, and all of that. So that's where that will be affecting you, Scorpio risings. And Sagittarius risings, this is happening in your 1st house, your house of self, your body, your appearance, like who you are, how you move in the world, your self-directedness, how you want things and want to accumulate things in your life. So that's where it's hitting you. For Cap risings, this is happening in your 12th house. So that is the shadow. That is the part. So, and this one might feel a little bit more difficult having eclipses there in the 12th house. It's the shadow side. It's the side that's often not seen. You know, there has been a lot just for all Cap, like so much of this has been happening for you in the 12th house. So it's been deeply internal, deeply inward and isolating. And there's just a little bit more of that before we're moving on past that. But yeah, that is happening in the 12th house. So it might feel a little bit more isolating. It might, you know, feeling like a little bit more withdrawn during this particular eclipse. For Aquarius risings, this is happening in your 11th house, your house of friendships and networks and alliances, the people in groups, the people that you communicate with, and the people that you share information back and forth. So you're going to see kind of a bookend in that, or some changes in that, and then some new things coming out from there. And for Pisces risings, this is in your 10th house. So look for newness in the sense of career. Now, you might have already saw that a little bit with some little opportunities popping up around career things, around things that have to do with your job. And so expect more of that and see where that's going to be leading you. So thank you, everybody, for watching the Astro Chat for this week. I hope you found this helpful. Like I said, horoscopes are usually up the Wednesday before the full moon, or at least usually on Wednesday. So make sure you check out my Instagram and my Facebook, because I usually have the horoscopes for the new moon. But here is the information. Make sure that you use this information, and so that you can make fantastic choices in your life. If you have any questions, you can leave them in the comments below. I always look at my comments and respond to them. You can also DM me, you can email me, and make sure you check out my website, www.thewildwahine.com, for bookings for astrology and tarot consults. I'm also on Clubhouse, where I do regular rooms on Wednesdays, and you can find me on Instagram and my website and on YouTube. And make sure you like and subscribe if you like this channel and you get something out of it and it's helpful, and make sure you share it with somebody else, because, you know, share the love and share the info. Aloha, and have a wonderful week. See you in the next video.